everyone, and welcome back to the SF show. It's been a really long time since we've done an episode, but we're really looking forward to this one. So we are actually exploring the difference between SF, consume, from an observer perspective versus a decider perspective. So really looking forward to that. But before we get into it, I'm just going to let everybody else reintroduce themselves because it has been a minute in case you all forgot who we are. So I will start with me. I'm Maria, double feminine, SCFI, consume, play, sleep, blast, number one. And yeah, I'm the resident blast here. And yeah, it's really hard for me to do this, but yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Right then, Samuel's the name, type ESTP, audio SCFE, play, consume, blast, sleep. That's who I am.
Nice.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm gonna go next because the DE doesn't want to talk. I'm Hannah, SIFI, sleep, last, play, consume, and I'm a number 3.
Hello everyone, so it's Emmanuelle, and so I'm double feminine, SIFE, blast, sleep, play, consume, and number is not determined yet, so we'll see for more, like sooner. What? Please, Maria, save me from this.
Sheila?
I'm the beautiful guest today. I'm Sheila, double feminine, FISE, consume, play, sleep, last, number 3. So I was shocked to be number 3.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Why did you say that?
Well, I kept going back between a 1 and 2. I'm like, no way, I have responsibility. I'm not irresponsible. I'm so responsible. So that the whole word of responsibility really threw me for a loop. And when Dave's like, you're a 3, I was just like, oh, I don't want to be a 3. Like that was the one that I'm like, oh, I don't want to be a 3 at all. But now that I understand a little bit more about the whole responsibility and how we're very responsible in our little, IJ box, then that makes so much more sense. Because I'm very, even with as a skib, consume, play, I'm much more introverted than like a lot of people. And then Dave said that the number 3s tend to be a little more on the introverted side. So that made a lot more sense too, because I know I didn't have sleep as a savior because I see the skibness, but I could not leave my house for weeks at a time or not call anybody for weeks at a time and be content. And so, yeah, that makes a lot more sense that way. And I'm accepting the number 3 now. It's okay.
Yeah. Okay. That does make sense because obviously being a decider, like your biggest problem would still be like the NI, right? Because that's only single activated, whereas TEG side of things is single activated. So the understanding, building your own understanding of that would be quite tricky. But it sounds like you've kind of come to a good understanding of yourself of what it means, and it's kind of starting to make sense to you a little bit now.
Yeah, I even when I got my type back, I never had an issue with it because it's like I feel like how we just know things when we don't think we know them. That gut reaction, and you're kind of like, no, but then even if it's like not conscious, you're like, when somebody does say something out loud, it's like, oh, and it like hits, and the puzzle piece, seems to get, work. Sorry, words. The puzzle piece tends to just like come down and Tetris right into the little hole. And so I'm like, okay, that's what makes so much sense when the outside, especially maybe being an IP, when the outside tribe gives me feedback, I'm just like, oh, it's like mind blowing when the tribe says something about me, because it's like somebody's actually paying attention to me, or it's trying to figure me out. And it's like, I don't think that way. Like, even though I sit and try to figure the tribe out all the time, I don't think they are trying to figure me out, you know, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it totally does.
Okay.
Yeah. Does anyone have any comments or thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's hard to because in a way you can think of the number 3 as savior responsibility also, but it's like a different kind of responsibility, but you have that kind of responsibility first. So in a way, the number 2 and the number 3 are both responsibility first, but you know, just in a different kind of way. So it makes sense. I
Yeah.
had the same problem. I also saw myself as a number 2 because I misunderstood what a responsibility meant. Of course. Mhm.
Yeah. So just to channel change a little bit, Sheila. So obviously we're looking at the difference between SF consume from a decider's perspective versus an observer perspective. So from your own words, how would you describe consume? How is it manifesting? How does it come up? And what are you seeing?
Sorry, did you hear that ding?
No.
Okay, good. Okay. Let's see. So my consume manifest, especially SF consume, like I think I'm constantly okay, as a decider, when I'm in my own little world, the SF consume is much more different than when a human walks into the room or if I'm out in public. The radar goes totally different. So when I'm just like in my little bubble and I don't have to worry about the tribe, my SF consume is mostly I love like learning, constant learning, learning new skills, learning just random SE stupid info. Like if something, you know, like planes pop into my mind, I'm just like, I gotta learn more about planes or learn more about whatever pops into my mind. I'll just have to Google. It's this compulsion. And I just like retain stupid facts, like, and I don't retain them long term because of feminine sensory, but once in a while I'll pull them out of my butt and I'm like, oh wow, I can't remember or can't believe I remember that. But as a decider, when I'm out in public, the consume goes right to people, and I will look at, and maybe it's, well, one, I was in the hair industry my whole life. Like I was a cosmetologist and in, you know, hair and beauty and fashion. So I'm constantly looking at people's hair, their makeup, their clothing, what they drive, their houses. So all that SF, I'm paying attention to that. So yeah, that's huge when there's people out there. I'm like, and then I'm like judging them by their hair, by their makeup, by their clothes. I'm like, oh, that type of person is probably this type of person because they wear X or they do this. So like right away, I'm like trying to put them in a little NI box of mine to make sense of the humans. So I would say that's a lot of my consume out in
Wow,
public.
that's interesting. So it shifts when you're on your own, you're kind of consuming things, but when you're with other people, you're more consuming people.
Mhm. Yeah.
That's interesting.
I mean, at the same time, like if I'm watching a video of, say, a person on YouTube or something, I'm looking at their hair and their makeup and, you know, putting them in like, oh, I bet they're this type of person, judging them like, I bet they're that type of person. And I have to categorize people um, to make sense of them, to know how I can interact or how I should.
But isn't it your play more than your consume? Like when you're with the tribe, you're doing the play with the judging the spectrum, regarding the sensory of the spectrum and having an understanding of the spectrum through this sensory?
I don't know because it's play more interacting with the people because as I'm, you know, they could just pass me by on the street and I'm just kind of taking them in a, a as a vibe, you know.
Mhm.
I think
Does that make sense or am I understanding that differently? because play is like throwing the ball back and forth, right? So if I was to interact with the people, but if I'm just out in public and, at the grocery store and seeing, people walking by me, I'm just taking them in. That's like consuming them,
Yeah.
consuming their SF.
No,
I
I
think
think that makes sense because it sounds like you're double observing, but ultimately you're always like you have a very like when it comes to like people being in the room, you have a singular focus and your focus zeroes in on the person, but you're kind of like double observing. You're looking at the spectrum of the sensory, you're looking at the clothes, what they look like, what's what you can see, and then you're kind of conceptualizing that. So you're doing the double observing when you're around people, but like if you are in a space or if you notice a person, it's like your focus zeroes in on the person. Whereas I'm not doing that. I don't have a zero focus on a person. Like a person is part of the like I thingify people. And if I'm processing, like if I'm doing like processing like the sensory spectrum of things, like people are part of that thing, but they're not individually, like I'm not individually processing people as a thing, like people on their own as an entity. Like it's just all part of this big like mess that I'm trying to make sense of. But I don't have a zero focus on people. And that sounds like that's the difference.
Yeah, I hyper focus on people because I don't want to be caught off guard. I don't want to be caught with my pants down when it comes to a person. Like that's serious business, I'm like, ooh.
Wow.
I don't want them thinking that I'm something that I am not. Like that's huge for an IP. Like I have this vision of who I am, like strong, especially, years of, molding who I want to be. And so like if the outside tribe is like, oh, she's X and I'm like, no, I'm Y, there's this incongruentness that I'm just like, oh, and it's such like this, like it's like a Grand Canyon, because it's like there's no bridge to tie those two together. It's like this, it's just too much of a gap when there's such an incongruent message.
That's interesting that you mentioned about being caught with your pants down, because that is something that I have been processing myself. And I don't know if you've probably seen that as like a flex thing, because I'm overly concerned about being in space with people and being caught with my pants down. Like it's something that I worry about quite a lot. And I think that then manifests as like trying to control the narrative of how I'm coming across, how I'm looking. But I don't know, maybe the difference between me and you is that even if I do get caught with my pants down, it's not the end of the world, even though it's a big concern. You know what I mean? Like I'm not worried about the judgment aspect of it, as opposed to I'm worried about me not living up to my own potential, and just it being a reflection of me as opposed to other people are going to judge me. So I don't know what you guys think about that.
That makes sense, right? Because you don't have, even as a flexor, you don't have this gap between your own perspective and the other one. You're always very concerned with them lining up, but you feel like you are responsible for, if you don't like the way that the perspective of yourself and the tribe lines up, then you're responsible to change it. It's not a question of changing other people's perspective, even though it doesn't actually reflect the truth of who you are. Am I making sense? No. Okay.
No, you are. But can you hear that ding?
Yeah, we can.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm like trying to figure out how I can.
No big
Sounds like it's a notification.
For the people who are judging the observer chaos, you can judge. Leave a comment. Write in the comment if you're feeling judgment.
It's nice to have a decider on here who's having observer problems.
Yeah, it's so validating.
Yeah, right.
I'm the only decider here. Oh, am I talking so foreign for you guys then? Like, Or
Yeah.
does it make, or can you understand it? Or are you just kind of like bored with the,
Nah, man, it makes sense.
It's interesting.
Yeah, I would say it's interesting. It's like a different way of looking at the world. It's like, whoa, that's how you're looking at things. Okay. So I would say it's more interesting than what I'm bored.
Yeah.
yeah. And it's like, I'm sorry, I'm trying to figure how to like silence if I press, oh, do not disturb until this evening. Okay, perfect. All right, I got it. Uh-oh, now what happened?
Everything is good.
Okay, I lost your faces.
Yeah, we can still see and hear you.
Yeah.
How come I lost your faces now? What did I do? Oh man.
You know, I
There
expected.
you are. Okay, got it. Got
Wow.
it.
Oh my God.
Double
Working through
observer.
these server issues.
Can anyone hear me, by the way?
Yeah.
No,
No?
no.
I can hear you.
All right, cool.
So as all you guys being observers, then so people really are not that serious for you guys? I mean, really?
People
No, they
are
are.
okay. It's just this idea that people generally are okay. And even if they're not, there's always gonna be another group of people who are okay, you know. I was talking to my IP friend about this the other day because she was like having like decider issues and she was really concerned about like things coming back to her and not giving out information and stuff like that. And I had to basically explain to her that, you know, I don't mind, you know, people thinking badly of me because if I'm in a group where people think very badly of me, yeah, that, you know, I'm just very aware that that group of people probably have their own expectations, their own understanding of the world, their own beliefs. But if there is a group of people who don't like me or have bad opinions about me, there's just as equally, there's always going to be a different group of people where I can be myself because, you know, they have a certain mindset or a certain belief. And this is a space where I can be, you know, myself and I can be comfortable. So it's, I don't know, for me, it's just that idea that just as much as there's going to be a place where there's going to be bad judgment, there's always going to be a place where there's always going to be like positive feedback from people. So I think it's just that understanding. Whereas I think when I was speaking to my friend, she was just kind of stuck in this idea that everyone, everywhere you go, is just, oh, there's always going to be bad judgment. And it's like, yeah.
Yeah. I want to add onto that. I feel like the single deciders, somehow they seem to believe that it's up to a singular person or group to decide who someone is. And I think that we as double deciders, we don't believe that our own identity is up for us to fully decide what our identity is. So there is the tribe's opinion of us. That's part of who we are, because it's not objective to just say, but you don't understand me, I'm really this. No, if the tribe sees you a different way, then that's not fully you, what you believe. And that's just like, seems, I think, pretty obvious to us that it's not up to a single entity to decide who someone is. I think that's really the difference. And I think that's why we don't get this feeling of there being like a canyon between identities, between how you see yourself and how other people see you, because we always factor that into our understanding of who we are or who someone else is. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah.
It is
I mean,
serious, but it's not, you know, it's not black and white.
yeah. And it's taken me years to not, I mean, there will always be that deciderness in me, you know, but it's definitely has come down, like the volume has been turned down on how serious the tribe is. I mean, as you get older, you know, you just feel more comfortable in your skin. You're like, oh, you know I'm not going to be everybody's cup of tea. And that's fine because you know, not everybody's my cup of tea. And so it's like, I see that and I feel like often 80% of the time I can do the double deciding fairly easily, but then there's that 10% or 20% where it's just like the gears are just way stuck and I was just like, but watching my husband who is an EP observer and taking a page out of his handbook. I'm like, okay, okay. Sorry. Yeah, taking a page out of his handbook has helped me navigate the people situation, and vice versa. When he's like, the driveway is going to be horrible all the time. I'm like, the driveway's fine. Every spring it gets muddy and it dries up, and I take him off that ledge. And so it's like seeing the absurdity of him stressing about the observer stuff is how I can be like, okay, I'm being absurd about the decider stuff. It's like having that mirror held to me. It's made my life easier. But when like heavy, big decider stuff happens, then that will just knock me down, a lot harder than and takes a little longer to dig out of that hole. So yeah.
Yeah.
Got a quick question for you about your lovely husband. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So when you guys, oh, look at you perk up. So I'm curious, did he approach you first?
Yeah, he did. It was how we met. I was 19 and he was 21. And my girlfriend that I was living with at the time dating this guy, and he came over and brought Greg. And so he came into our little apartment, and the minute I saw him, it was like, oh my gosh, a huge attraction. And I was dating some other guy at that time, but I was going to break up with him. And we were all heading to a party, and yeah, he locked on to me as well, and he was like trying to make out with me, and I'm like, I've got a boyfriend, but then we ended up like kissing behind like two garages, and I ended up dumping that the guy. But that night at the party, I told my girlfriend, and I don't remember saying this, but she told me years later after we got married, she goes, you remember that time that night you met Greg? She goes, you said that you were going to marry him someday. And I was like, did I? That night I met him, and it was just like instant attraction. But he was a
What
typical 21-year-old ESTP player. Like I know the ESTPs get a bad rap, and like, oh my gosh, but he was just a typical 21-year-old who did not want to like get in a relationship. And so we dated off and on for a few years before we got married. But like we broke up, and then he'd call, and I'd be like, oh, Greg's calling, and then we'd go out, and yeah. Yeah.
All right. Two things. One, I feel like a clone now. Fair enough. That's original. And then two, what did you think you noticed about him then? Because you always say that your consume focuses on the people. So what was it that floated your boat?
It was his humor, and it's always been his humor. That was like, I mean, I thought he was just cute too, like just like cute. But his humor, that was what won me over. Like, if somebody can make me laugh, you are my people. Like, that's just important for me. So it was just his energy, his humor, just charming. Like, I don't know, SEFE is very charming. Because even like when I watched before he got typed, I thought he was SEFE, and then I flipped to SETE for a while. But every time Dave and Shan did a class on the SEFEs, like the guys like Terry Crews, and who was the guy with the longer hair that
the Mexican dude. Yeah.
Mexican. Yeah, that class. Like, they're so charming to me. Like, they're very charismatic. Like, even Terry Crews, like, Terry Crews's energy and his humor, that's kind of a lot like Greg's energy and humor. And it's just, and I don't know if it's just that FE and that likes to move the energy in the room. And yeah, it's a superpower. Like, FE, I'm like, yeah. I mean, there's parts of it I'm like, oh, FE, but when FE is on fire, it's like the best. That's my favorite. It's my favorite.
Ah, FI favorite.
Do you feel
Simon,
validated,
talk about this.
Sam?
So yes, I had a question. How do you see with the consume and the tribe consume, as you described at the first part of the show, the you having this side on the tribe and having a judgment on the tribe, does it sometimes restrain your ability to connect with the tribe? And what are the clues that says for you, oh no, I won't talk to this one, or I will talk to this one, or I won't feel this one, or I will feel this one? And in what matters, it is a difficulty for you to access information from the tribe because you have these elements that you gather that are giving you signals somehow. I don't.
Yeah, like I would say it really depends on my mood, how aggressive or passive I can interact with the tribe. Like if I'm feeling, good and confident, and then I can, like I don't have a problem approaching people or talking to people. I mean, the play helps, obviously, but I mean, I'm the type of person who's standing in a grocery store line and like smiling and making, like small talk with people. Like small talk to me is just like earlier, it's like foreplay. It's like a way to get into the person. So I might just, compliment them, be like, oh, I love your shirt, or I love this, or, I'll share my FI in hopes to connect and be able to like open up a door, because I do notice like a lot of people, I don't know if it's just, like society now, but people are really can be much more closed off and standoffish, like out in public. Like even if you compliment somebody or something, they're like, like I think people are just have gotten so much more nervous of other people. And I don't know if I'm projecting, right now, or if that's just true, because it's like, even 10 years ago, people seemed a little different than how people are in society nowadays. Like I'm seeing the shift of, yeah, people just tend to be less open, maybe. So yeah, like, and I love, people. I do. Like it sounds weird as an IP, but I want to, have more friends. I want to connect, but I do in general have a little harder time approaching certain people. And maybe it's like how our judgment is so quick. And judgment to me is not like necessarily a bad word. When I use judgment, it's just like making like a decision or something. It's like, I know judgment gets a bad connotation, but in general, it's just like it's having to make sense of something. So it's like putting it in my little NI box, like the sensory. So oh shoot, now I'm just skimmed out of that thought. What was I saying?
Where
About people being not as friendly now, and you wasn't sure if that was just an IP thing or not.
Yeah, so yeah, it's like trying to just I don't know, figure. I guess it's my NT really trying to like figure people out, and I'm using my consume and my SF to connect, and the feelings. Like I'm using all my saviors to really get to the meat and potatoes of how people really work. I mean, I think that's my whole objective in life is that's my
Well,
end goal. Like, yeah, what makes people click?
I think you are part right, naturally. I mean, I'm from London, so slightly different but similar. But think about it. We live in a city where apparently human beings are not designed to be in such a big exposure. So therefore that bonding process kind of filters out, where if you was in a village, everyone's going to know your business. So then you'd be more naturally friendly.
Yeah.
especially Sam knows your business.
Yeah. And I do notice that just because I live out in the country in a small town. So when I go into our local stores here in the small town, people tend to be more friendly. But I drive an hour into the big city and walk into that same store in a different location, and people are they're just more like and crabbier and don't talk to me and more rushed. And yeah, even just an hour difference in the community, I see a huge difference. Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, fast-paced city life.
Yeah.
I have a follow-up to something that you said. So you mentioned earlier that sometimes you kind of have to be in the like feeling good about yourself for you to have more of like a positive interaction with other people. So how do you see your FI like influencing the things that you consume and the way that you consume? So like to what extent does you being in a better like emotional state, does that affect what you consume and how much you consume?
I think when I'm feeling like energetic and upbeat and in a good mood, I kind of skip the consume a little bit more and go to the play, because then I want to be more extroverted. It's like when I'm feeling down or depressed or emotionally not there, then I will like, you know, go into more of that consume hole. Um,
Mhm.
yeah. So, I mean, I don't have to be depressed to consume. I mean, obviously I'm consuming, but like, I'll just consume, like go on Amazon and like look at what's cool, what's stylish, what's new gadget can I buy, like that type of SF consume. It's like just constantly like what's new out there, what's different, what's fun, what could make my life, you know, yeah. So I think that's where I'll do a lot of the SF consume,
That's
or like retail therapy. I wonder if a lot of SF consumes use that retail therapy more than, like an NT person. I've never heard somebody be like, like a NT, I need to go do some retail therapy.
yeah,
Mm.
I do a lot of retail therapy.
Yeah. So I that's got to be just huge. If you hear somebody say retail therapy, put them in the SF consume, huh?
Yeah.
Ariana Grande, Seven Rings. It's a
Yeah.
retail therapy.
I see it. I like it. I take it.
So I have no clue about what is retail therapy, but I will look it up. But what is the next cool thing that is coming and you foreseen? Like, if I want to be SF, on top, what would you advise?
Give us advice. We say.
Yeah, please save us.
Well, like I would say, FISF and versus FESF. So like what I see is, so the difference between me and my husband, like I get compliments on my style or how I look, even though he's SF, he doesn't care as much about like what's, stylish as much. I'm sure some SEFEs do, but maybe because FI knows exactly what they like and don't like. Um, and so it's easy for us to be like, oh, I like X. So then you will deep dive into X and figure out that perfect X. But I wonder if like you with the and you've got the SI, so you're not looking at, maybe the SE plays a huge role too of the spectrum of what's cool too. But I don't, yeah. Ooh, trying to give you a lesson, huh? You asked me to blast a lesson. I mean, a little bit there, but I guess probably trying to figure out what you find SF cool and then just rocking it, like feeling confident in it and not wavering. And because sometimes, like, you see somebody's style and you might not like their style, but they're so confident and they're, like, and so their style just looks cool because they are so confident in their style, if that makes sense.
That's very
Makes sense.
interesting because I remember Maria talking about the SE, how she will gather the spectrum and have, you correct me, Maria, how you gather the spectrum and see what's fashion and how you can make it your own and somehow. And I see you, Sheila, as having your own and looking in the spectrum where you can gather your own somehow.
Mhm.
Yeah.
You agree, Maria?
Yeah, that's why I asked the question, because I think whatever animal is, whatever function is at the top, because that's what you start with, and then you use the other ones to help you. So like with Sheila, she's kind of building her identity. She's deciding, about herself, and depending on whether she's in a different mood, that's going to impact the things that she's gathering, and that's going to mar that. Whereas me, I'm just open, and I'm just taking things in first, and then I decide, is this for me or not? But I'm kind of jumping in and just seeing what's out there first before I decide that this is something that I want to like take from this. But I see the difference with FI and FE is that with FI, when it comes to the like fashion, I feel like FI is the cherry picking a lot, and just leaving the rest, whereas I feel like the FEs would be more of like generally what is out there. The question that you asked is very FE, whereas I feel like with the FIs, it's not the question that we'd be asking. It's not what is out there that everybody is going, is fashion, is trending or whatever. It's more like how Sheila answered it. It's like you pick what you want and you decide that this is what I want, and then you rock it. We cherry pick. We're cherry picking, I think, with what's
Yeah.
out there.
Yeah, because like, so say you go into a department store and, there's a whole spectrum of different styles out there. Like when I walk into the store, I already know what I like and what I'm kind of like looking for as I walk into the store. So for me, I can just like, get rid of half of the store at least, right away. I'm like, okay, yep, not looking for anything like that. And I like go there. Where I wonder like FE is just like trying to like look at it all and be overwhelmed and be like, oh, that's in the store. It must be cute. People like that. Maybe, but over here, people must like this because this is here. So, then you maybe get overwhelmed with all the information and you're just like, okay, I don't know what to get, and then you walk out with nothing. Where I'm just like, I like pink. I like, this type of cut. I want that. And, and I'm just like going through the racks and hyper focused on what I'm looking for, I mean, occasionally, like if I go to a thrift store or something, I'll go through all of it and then pull up something and, see if I can tweak it to make it more my style or, redo it, sew something on it or like alter it. So there's that aspect. But yeah, I'm very SF, like, like,
Yeah.
yeah, I unfortunately, and my bank account shows SF too. It's like, I'm
I
minimalist.
appreciate you saying that, actually, because that's just kind of validated something in my head that I've always thought. I always feel like the decider SF consume is more of a true consume, because you are so intentional about the things that you are gathering. You already come into a space having an idea of what exactly you want to get out of that. Whereas for me, I don't. I just see how it goes, I don't know what I want yet. And I think I rely on the sensory to help me to figure it out. Like the SE, I rely on the gathering to help me to figure out what I want. But you already know, you already come into spaces having an idea of what you already want. And yeah, you cut through all the bullshit, I think.
Yeah.
Wait,
So so do you end up having a lot of impulse buys that you regret then because you
yeah.
get too much SE
Yeah, I
first?
think that's where the consume pile comes out in. For me, that's how it really manifests. I just have things that I only use once, things that I realized I liked it in the moment, but I realized actually I don't really like it. I think it's just the impulse to gather. I think that's what's cranked all the way up, it's just I'm taking things in just for the sake of taking things in, and I don't even know if I'm gonna like it or not. I just want stuff.
Okay. And I mean, I will have the occasional impulse buy as well, but it doesn't happen as often. I'm usually like trying to find the TE reason, like, okay, there should, like, it's probably not cranked up as much as you, but over the years, it's definitely, I've been able to narrow down and I'm like, okay, do I need this or do I want this? And try to like differentiate between the two of a need and a want. So that helps.
Okay.
It also sounds like a bit of OI too, where maybe it's not actually reasons, it's more in terms of, do I need this thing to satisfy my thing needs, yes or no? Versus, do I like it, or do I actually need it to build my wardrobe enough to make it function? Maybe.
Yeah. Yeah. Because there's definitely things, you're out shopping and you're like, oh, I like that. And you put it in your cart and you walk around a little while and then you look at it again. And you're like, do I really like, I still be like, I mean, I'll still like it, but I'm like, okay, is the price what I really want to pay for how much I like this thing? Or, like, do I really need like, yeah, there would be, and then I'm much better at putting things back now as I've aged than to just come home with it and be like, not have, I have a bunch of clothes in my closet with price tags still on, 5 years ago,
Wow.
that used to be, that could be a problem as SF consume, like, yeah.
Yeah, guilty. You sound like you're exercising your OI, your NI a lot better than I am. Because you're thinking about the long term. You're projecting. Am I not just really liking this in this moment, but is this something that's going to fulfill me long term, or tomorrow? Am I still gonna like this tomorrow? You're like, yeah, you're exercising your sleep, I think there, which is great. It's really cool.
Yeah. But like I said, it's taken years, like 20-year-old Sheila, it bought a lot, and it's like over the years you buy and then you look around and you're like, why do I have all this shit? And you just like garage sale, give it away. And that over and over thing of happening, it's like eating, overeating too much. You feel sick and just like, ugh. And so that's what over consuming feels like. After a while you feel sick.
Yeah, that's and Shan mentioned it in the last live show. It's like this feeling of never having enough. It's like you just cannot satisfy. There's nothing in the bottom of my stomach that tells me that I've had enough. And it's like consume cramped all the way up is I can never have enough. And whether that's overeating, whether that's overspending, over shopping, it's just I have to always have more. And I think like managing the consume is really just training yourself that you don't need this thing. You don't need more of this thing. Like telling yourself that you have enough. You've had enough. That's hard.
Yeah, like leaving the store with nothing and going home. And if you're not even thinking about half the stuff you saw there anymore, like, okay, that dopamine is gone. And, but if you're still laying in bed, like, oh, I love that sweater, and you think about it for a couple days, then okay, I should go back and get that sweater or something like that. But in general, that, that dopamine hit when you're in the store and seeing all this cool stuff, it goes away quickly, when you get home and you just like, you barely think about half the stuff there anymore.
Yeah.
So exercising that would be like, just walk away, not buy it. And, yeah.
Yeah.
Question about all of that, if I may. Where do you think, from your perspective, your idea of what you want comes from? If there is no OE that comes like with Maria, where she gathers first, where do you think, where does that knowing what you want come from? This is such a consume loss question. I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
I don't get it.
Yeah. It's really hard to explain because it does feel like just breathing, like you're not really concentrating on your breaths, you're taking in breaths and breathing. So that's what consume at the top feels like. And FI at the top, what it feels like, because it's like this innate knowing what you like and what you want, and especially because both my FI and my NI are masculine, so that NF sleep is so strong that it just feels very like animalistic.
Mhm.
It feels very like just yeah, like I don't have to even think about most of the things I like. It's just like if say you have this like somebody coming at you and holding up, like this item and that item right away. I'm just like that one, this one, that one. I mean, you could come at me, like so quickly with, things I like and don't like, and I'd be like, yes, no, yeah, and not even think twice.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's weird
I think
how
this
you just
question is, oh, sorry.
yeah. No, it's very animalistic. Like I just can't explain the FI.
And are you
Yeah.
then ever surprised by your FI? I don't know if that makes sense, where you're like, oh, this is what I want. What? No. Answer is no.
I would have to think hard. I mean, I'm sure there's instances, but um, in general, I would say probably I can't think of an instance where I really wave. I mean, there's like say big ticket items, like say a house, when we have gone house shopping over the years. That one, when you're spending hundreds of thousands of dollars, I'll know what I like in a house and what I don't like in a house. And then you have to kind of weigh out the price, and you can't have everything in the house. Like, there's going to be things you have to sacrifice. So there's those type of things where it's like making decision can take a little longer when you're,
Yeah.
big life decisions like buying houses or cars or stuff like that. Like, well, actually, a car, like one time I was driving by a car lot, and I saw a car, and I was just like, oh my gosh, I need that car. I drove home. I'm like, hun, I saw a car in a lot. And he's like, let's go look at it. And then came home, so like that was, but I guess it just, I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was not a practical car. It was a convertible, and but I loved that damn car until we got pregnant, and then it was just like a 2-seater, and we had to, have a mom car. But so yeah, I guess you have FI. Like, is yours not as strong as that?
It's like I don't know, like imagine you thought you knew something about yourself, but then you were wrong all the time. I don't know if that makes sense, but it's like this is what I want. No, wait, what? Wait, what? Do I want the opposite? What? I'm confused. It's just confusion about your FI because maybe you have like a strong notion of something, but then all of a sudden it hits you. You're like, first of all, I don't even fucking know what I want or who I am, and I'm in full confusion. And now I have to ask the tribe because I have no access to my FI anymore. That's what it feels like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. No, yeah, FI at the top, tippy top. It's 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 a beast.
Yeah.
It's good and bad as a beast. There's lots of parts of it that are absolutely like I hate about it, but
I definitely relate to what Hannah said about like feeling confused and thinking you like something and realizing that you don't. Because I feel like the lower down the FI goes, like the less access you have to it, and it's not as strong. So even if we have FI second, I don't feel that strongly about a lot of things. But I think Hannah's question to me, it seems like a chicken and egg type situation. Because if I think about, like, if we're asking the same question for the like leader knives, for example, like where do their guesses come from? You know, like it's the whole message from God thing. It's like I feel like all of the introverted functions at the top, they're just like where is that coming from?
Yeah.
Because you would assume that you need to do all the OE first to then kind of build that OI. But actually, if you have that at the top, they always seem like when they're coming into situations, always seems like this is something that they've already had stacked up. And now they're just going into these situations and kind of gathering things that are stacking them up further. So I don't know. It's for me, that question, I've always seen it as like a chicken and egg situation. Like, what does come first, the OE or the OI?
You're right. No, you're right. It's an odd question because it doesn't fully make sense, because the function isn't about a thing, it's about a process. But I guess for me, sometimes it's hard. I feel like it makes sense if you have SI at the top, how that can be there first, because it's basically you come out of the womb, the first thing you see, you're like, that's my OI. But with all of the other introverted functions, I'm like in confusion of where the fuck it comes from.
Yeah.
Like, I see my mom is in my OI, and end of the story, done. I don't know if that makes sense. So with FI and TE at the top, or whatever is at the top, TI, FE, I'm always like, where does it come from? Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, say something I absolutely love, you know, X, and I love X forever, and then all of a sudden something new comes and can replace X, you know, that's even bigger and better, and then I'm like, how did I even like that other X, you know, because something else, you know, like, so there's that aspect of things, but that would just be like, you know, like it's just kind of like the very first iPhone versus the iPhone now. I like, you know, 18 years ago when the first iPhone came out, you're like, this is the best. And then, you know, now, ooh, this iPhone's the best. So like, you know, how things evolve. So I'd be like, what did I like in that old thing? You know, but if that makes sense at all.
Makes sense.
Totally.
Okay.
No worries.
I have a final question, Sheila, just to quickly, before we wrap it up. So one of our questions that we usually ask is how you're seeing the other animals. So if you can quickly give us a round about of like how you're seeing the other animals from a decider perspective, and how you like interact with them, if that would be
Okay.
that makes sense.
Yeah. So sleep for me is what you're asking.
Yes.
Right?
So like you know, how are you from the SF consume decider perspective seeing SF sleep observer and
Okay.
and
So how I'm seeing you guys.
yeah.
Oh, you're asking an IP how the tribe is?
Yeah.
No, okay. So no, I could like, so Samuel's SF, what is that?
Chose me first because of your husband, right?
Yeah, it's easier. I've got some
Mm.
ammo back there, but so your SF is play.
Yeah.
It's
That's like a trick question for single deciders.
SF play. So yeah, it's definitely, you can see how I'm like, the gears are not as fluent. Gotta start talking about others. I can sit and talk about myself for hours. SF play. How I see SF play is like definitely outward. You know, looking at the people outwards, and like the people I'm going to bring it to people, obviously, but so like say, you know, my husband, if he sees somebody at a party that they're not having that much fun, it's like his mission to go like, hey, let's, you know, come on over, join in. Like he needs to like get the vibe up and bring the people in and get everybody like happy and on, you know, like having fun. That's how I see SF play a lot. And so my daughter's SF, like, so SF, she's an observer. Hers is sleep. And so what I see SF sleep doing is very introverted, going over what they enjoy and what they want. And also what, like, I see her going over past things, like reminiscing about when grandma was alive and reminiscing about certain things. So I see that SF sleep kind of like this constant mulling over the same old information and happiness or sadness. Like she will talk about things that made her happy or sad over. And like it's like this, just like this constant bubble going round and round. Like she'll get into that. So that's how I see SF sleep. And what's the last one? SF blast?
SF blast, yeah. And then it will be SF consume.
SF blast. I don't know if I know very many SF blasters. What type is that again?
That's Emmanuelle's type.
SIFE.
So
SF.
all of so from the alpha quadrant have SF blast.
No.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I do not know much about SF blast. See, I don't have any known information I can go over to.
Do you know any nurse? No, I'm sorry.
Oh, what the hell is SF blast doing? You tell me. I want to know.
We're changing the world with good vibes and old techniques. Well, no.
That was such a perfect summary. That was marvelous, Emmanuelle.
All right. I'm gonna have to pay attention because I don't know if I have any, like, a lot of, I'm sure they're around me in life, but because they haven't been officially typed, like I don't want to just assume that this person is doing this because of that. Like I hate when people are like, oh,
Yeah.
my mom is, an ESFJ, like all moms are ESFJs, but so
course.
they're just projecting what they know. And so I don't want to do that. So I guess I just need to. And I think for me, like when you guys are asking me questions, like Maria's questions to me just click right away. Like I can answer right back because we're speaking the same exact language. The other ones, when you're asking me questions, Samuel's, I can understand pretty easily, but I would say
Those SIs, they're
Well,
a pain in the ass.
It's also because it's double hard because English is not our mother tongue, so maybe we're not the best at expressing ourselves in the clearest way possible.
It's
no, but
not
there is
that,
a
Hannah, you know
there-
it.
yeah, there is
It's not that bad. I'm just
it's
like
probably if we watch this back, if so the questions that Maria asked me, I probably answer them the way she wanted me to. I bet you the questions that you get, the other ones that ask me, I'm probably went off on a different tangent. I took it differently. Like I bet you, that will happen because I
that's
do.
perfect. That's the nature of humanity, right? So don't always get what you want sometimes.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. Wow. Thank you so much, Sheila, for joining. It was really, really great talking to you. Really great insight. I actually really enjoyed this episode. The decider perspective is really interesting, and I'm glad we're doing this. So thank you so much. And thanks.
Yeah, well, thank you.
Bye.
Yeah, thank you for letting me
Thank
rant
you,
about
everyone.
myself.
Thank you.
Sheila,
Yeah.
so I'd met you before your husband.
Oh!
Yeah.
Sam. Oh, wow.
I'm playing.
Yeah, well, I guess you need to find a double feminine FISE, huh?
I'm on it. I'm on it.
Sweet. Great. That's a wrap, guys.
Recording in progress. I think we should do a little introduction. Would you feel more comfortable if we introduced ourselves first?
Sure. A little foreplay.
I love that. I love that.
I love that.
Make it weird.
Oh no, I just realized, am I leading this one? Oh God, I'm not prepared.
Yes, you are. And I'm Hannah, and I'm from Austria, and Emmanuel is from France. That's why we have weird accents.
Speak for yourself. Sure, I don't have it.
Excuse me, madam.
I watched one video because I hadn't heard about you guys until you reached out, and because I didn't see it on. Do you guys post much on Facebook? Like, hey, here's our next episode or anything, or no?
I mean, yeah, we do that. Maria makes a post every time because
Okay.
Maria's the boss.
All right. I must have missed it then, but I'm sorry. I have to put my dog away if she was.
Don't worry about it.
All right. Okay, so foreplay's done. Let's get into it.
Yeah.